The couple opened a meat store. They do not sell pork net sales of human flesh. As long as customers eat a bite will be addicted. So the store business is booming overcrowded. Whenever the store sold out of meat, they would go out hunting for live people and then take the bodies home for dismemberment. Fatty meat into sausages. Lean meat stirred into meat filling. Fatty thin pancetta cut into thin slices. What could make them so cruel? A month ago, Vincent and Sophie were running a pork store. But business was so bad that they had to close if there were no more customers. But what's worse is that a group of people wearing animal masks entered and threw red paint on the wall. It turns out that they were a group of extreme vegetarians who were accused of eating meat, and they destroyed Vincent's butcher store and then tried to escape. Vincent rushes out the door and pushes a guy down and then rips off his mask. He tries to beat him up, but he gets punched and kicked by his friends. They shouted hooray for vegetables. There was nothing the couple could do about it. On the way home, Vincent has nowhere to go to vent his anger and happens to see the vegetarian guy who smashed up his butcher store earlier. Vincent slammed on the brakes and then backed up frantically, hoping to teach him a lesson. But instead the guy was already on the ground.
Il est mort?
Si ça bouffait de la viande, ce serait peut-être un peu plus résistant.
Vincent was at a loss for words. That's when Sophie came up with an idea.
Je crois qu'il faut faire comme Michel François.
Vincent carried the guy home, then took a knife to the body and chopped it into pieces like pork. Vincent cut off an ear and threw it to the dog, who ate it with gusto. The next day Sophie accidentally sold the meat to a customer and Vincent was about to blame her when the customer pushed in and said 10 more pounds. Incredulous, Sophie grabbed a piece of raw meat and put it in her mouth. Finding that vegetarian meat was so good, the piece of meat melted in the mouth. Fatty but not greasy, and even with a hint of fruits and vegetables, as if specially prepared for carnivores. Vincent did not believe, to the evening secretly cooking a piece, and finally also by the tender and delicious taste completely conquered. When she overheard that vegetarian meat was so good, Sophie told Vincent in a profound way. The next day they lied about the foreign pork and were inundated with customers. They realized that the meat would run out one day and they had to find a new target if they wanted to make money. First they went to the vegetarian restaurant to find their prey. But Vincent was very strict about the quality of the meat. Not too thin, not too fat, not too stressed looking. Eventually they settled on the restaurant chef. Vincent followed the chef all the way into the alley. And when he turned around he was afraid of God bless you.
Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
And so Vincent's first hunt was declared a failure.
Je dois faire un art martial où j'ai Krav Maga, un truc comme ça.
In order to stimulate her husband, the sensible Sophie brings home a handsome vegetarian guy late at night.
Tu mates juste ou?
Vincent finally couldn't take it anymore and punched the man, then smashed him with a lamp. And then they started human surgery. First they clean up the blood on the ground. Then they push the motorcycle into the lake to destroy the evidence and return home to cut the body into small pieces. The next day there was a long line at Vincent's butcher store and in no time all the meat was sold out. With the success of this hunt, they were looking for more vegetarians. And there was no end to the tricks they could come up with. Those who took the stairs were pushed down to their death. Those with low IQs were killed by car doors. Fat into sausages. Thin into meat pies. Fat and thin pancetta cut into thin slices. And the price of meat is skyrocketing. The next target was David, a vegetarian. They lured David in on the pretext of selling toys. And while David was checking the goods, Vincent pulled out a shiny kitchen knife. David saw what was going on and ran, and was gone in a flash. They thought the murder was about to be exposed and were about to turn themselves in when they found David on the ground. It turned out that David had died of a heart attack. The meat without wounds was a rare and good meat. They cooked David carefully and invited their friends, Mr. and Mrs. Mark, to taste it. But after eating half of the meat, Mark found a hard object. Mark's wife, who works in the hospital, immediately recognized it as a heart rate regulator. This is how Sophie explained it. The pig had a heart condition, so a pacemaker was used because it was prime pork. Having tricked the Marks, they went on a brutal hunt. In order to catch more prey, they watched the animal world every night. They learn the camouflage technique of the cheetah and then wait for the opportunity to quickly capture their prey with a lunge. They learn how the crocodile locks onto its prey with a swift bite. And they learn how the python strangles and the tiger's ferocious determination. For a change of pace, the two hunt black pork on the street and then cook it up at home. This day they were enjoying their prey. A vegetarian said to practice hot dog yoga here, but the barbecue desecrated nature. They had to give up the position to the guy. The guy slowly folds his body and tucks his head into his pants to turn himself into a hot dog.
Tu salueras le soleil de notre part.
And now the guy is really a hot dog. In just 1 month, they managed to hunt hundreds of prey. But as the town's population continued to disappear, the people of the town were in a state of panic. That night Vincent was handling the day's prey when a policeman knocked on the door and window. The policeman was a food lover who often came to Vincent's house to buy meat and even became suspicious. "It's so good. I can't help but wonder if it's real pork." Just then the dog came out with a hand in his mouth, and in his desperation Vincent barked, not only scaring the dog away but also sending the policeman away. Fearing that his crime would be exposed, Vincent decided to stop offering the special pork. They've made a lot of money in the meantime, and it's time to call it quits. But Sophie didn't agree. Why stop when there was money to be made? They had a big fight about it. Vincent had just gone out for a break when 3 extreme vegetarians arrived at the store, who had discovered their secret. In order to avenge their accomplices, the vegans kidnap Sophie and point to a pig's head to accuse her of their crimes. At night Vincent slips the dog home and the dog sniffs out a danger signal. A man and a dog rush into the room, and a battle breaks out. The dog takes the lead and manages to subdue one of them. The girl is hit by Vincent's knife, and then the leader, Jack, and Vincent struggle together. Seeing that Vincent is losing, Sophie breaks free and gives Jack a hook. Although they saved their lives, their crimes were exposed and they were sentenced to life in prison. When the judge asked them if they regretted what they had done, Sophie replied that she regretted not opening more chain stores. This is another film about eating human flesh, compared to other films of the same type for eating human flesh to criticize. This film is on the positive side of the evaluation of eating human flesh. The customers who go to the butcher store are basically normal French citizens, including housewives, police officers, and so on. The director is critical of vegetarians, who are either extreme thugs or paranoid perverts. For the main theme of the film, the director is obviously not advocating the eating of human flesh. The director wants to complain about the growing trend of vegetarian environmental protection in recent years. The extremes of vegetarian environmental protection has led to the extinction of traditional French cuisine. Of course, this film also elaborates on the quality of human flesh. Children's meat is indeed very tasty, but the man controls himself not to kill children. Killed in a state of tension will affect the quality of meat. The man also led his wife to vegetarian dude's massage to relieve tension. Vegetarian meat may be grain-fed, taste very good. The man also only killed vegetarians.